The Sweet 16 officially wrapped up last night, and with 8 games spread out evenly between Thursday and Friday, it did not disappoint. Let's start with the first 4 games on the Thursday slate, beginning with one of my favorites, 2-seed Arizona versus 6-seed Clemson. If this is your first time on the channel, this won't mean much to you, but if you watched our Sweet 16 preview video, you know that I pretty boldly picked Clemson to win this game, and that's exactly what the Tigers did, defeating Arizona 77-72 and punching their ticket to the Elite Eight for the first time since 2018. It was pretty much all Clemson in this first half. They were up 39-31 at the end of the half, and I'll be honest, Clemson dictated this game. Arizona early on turned the ball over like 4 times. They weren't taking very good shots. They weren't even utilizing Ballo, who in my opinion was their biggest mismatch. And on the defensive end, they let Clemson pretty much get whatever they wanted early on in the half-court offense. But that's the beautiful thing about this Clemson team. They are not going to let you control what they do. On defense, Chase Hunter absolutely clamped Caleb Love. He only had 13 points on 5 for 18 from the field, including 0 for 9 from 3, which is by far the worst 3-point shooting night of the season for him. He did go 1 for 7 against Oregon in the Pac-12 tourney and 0 for 6 versus USC at the end of the regular season. Caleb took some bad shots like he kind of always does, but I'm still giving a ton of credit to Chase Hunter. He's been incredible on the defensive end and potentially even better on the offensive end in this tournament, finishing the game with a team high 18 points, 7 boards, and 5 assists. Arizona actually did a really good job on Girard in this game. And one thing I love about Joe Girard is he was an absolute dog in high school. He's the New York State all-time points leader, passing Lance Stevenson as a junior and finishing with 4,763 all-time points, which according to the National Federation of High Schools is 10th all-time. I'm so sorry for this tangent, guys. Skip ahead if you don't care. This is crazy. He averaged 50 points per game as a junior and 48.6 as a senior. All right, sorry for the tangent. Back to this game. Joe Girard actually only scored 4 points in this game. The Wildcats did great on him, and he did miss 2 straight free throws, fouled on a 3, which is crazy because Joe is leading the nation in free throw percentage, and he had only missed 6 on the year out of 120. PJ Hall stayed out of foul trouble in the beginning of this game, but in the second half to start it, he had 3 straight fouls. And it was at this point that I thought Clemson was in trouble. Arizona takes the lead 46-45 with 14:33 to go in the game. But huge props to Clemson's role players. Jack Clark and RJ Godfrey hit a 3 and 2 free throws, putting them back up 4. And after that, Clemson never gave up the lead again the rest of the game, which means Clemson has held the lead in all but 2 moments in this tournament: the opening bucket of the opening round versus New Mexico, and these 20 seconds early in the second half versus Arizona. Clemson's head coach, Brad Brownell, had what I thought was a brilliant defensive adjustment. Arizona was on a roll on offense, cutting through that Clemson man-to-man and getting to the rim frequently. So Brownell went to their 3-2 zone and challenged Arizona to shoot threes on a night where they weren't making them. I think this was a missed opportunity from Arizona. Late in the game, Oumar Ballo had 2 easy layups when Clemson tried to front him, and I just thought they should have been doing that the whole game. Ballo was the biggest mismatch on the court, and especially when you don't shoot it well from 3, you have to be getting it inside to your 7-foot 260 big man. Ballo finished 7 for 10 from the field, but only 1 for 7 from the free throw line, 15 points and 15 rebounds. Jaden Bradley was fantastic for Arizona, a sophomore guard off the bench. He only averaged 7 points on the season, but in this game, he scored 18 points, including 8 for 9 from the free throw line. Pella Larson and Kylan Boswell were bad in this game too. Pella went 2 for 9 from the field, including 1 for 6 from 3, and Kylan went 1 for 6 from the field, including 1 for 5 from 3. The Wildcats as a team went 5 for 28 from the 3-point line, and while I give massive props to Clemson's defense, they have a lot of long athletic wings. Some of this is just straight up 3-point shooting luck. Clemson opponents are shooting 14 for 75 from 3 in this tournament, which is good for 18.7%. And that's not me dissing them, but sometimes you do get luck on your side with 3-point shooting that helps you make an Elite Eight run. Clemson star big man PJ Hall had his best game of the tournament, scoring 17 points, 8 boards, but it was far from a dominant game. He went 7 for 15 from the field, which is fine. We'll talk about the Elite Eight later, but I am expecting a big game from PJ Hall in the Elite Eight. You'll find out who they are facing later in this video. This video is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. They're running a new customer special right now. De'Aaron Fox needs just 1 point. Use code Hardwood to get a full deposit match up to $100. Underdog's my favorite place to play daily fantasy sports. And with NBA playoffs coming and MLB season just beginning, it's as good of a time as ever. Use code Hardwood or the link in the description. Now let's get back to the video. Game 2, number 1 overall seed, UConn versus 5 seed San Diego State. We mentioned this in our Sweet 16 preview. This is a rematch of the national title game from last year. I got to give my props to the Aztecs. They fought early in this one, and after a Micah Parrish jumper with 2:08 left in the first half, they were only down 4, 35-31 to UConn. Unfortunately for SDSU, their offense failed them in the second half, scoring just 21 points in the second half. I really feel for Jaden Ledee. I feel like he was one of the best players in this tournament. This team's identity is defense, and he just didn't have enough offensive help around him. Connecticut plays a pretty tight rotation. Only 2 bench players played significant minutes. Star point guard Tristan Newton had 17, 7, and 4 in this one, but it was Stephon Castle, freshman and top 10 projected NBA draft pick, who had 16 points, 11 boards on 5 for 8 from the field and 6 for 8 from the free throw line. I've said it before, I'll say it again. UConn has 5 lethal options in their starting lineup. UConn wins this one 82-52 in a 30-point blowout, making Connecticut 34-3 on the season, tying their most ever wins in school history. The last time UConn lost in the NCAA tournament was in 2022 in the round of 64. They got upset by 12 seed New Mexico State, but since then they have won every single game by more than 13 points. That's 9 straight wins of 13 points or more, which is an NCAA record. Don't worry, Husky fans, I've been brief with them in this tournament. There's just not a lot to say. They've been dominant, but if they make the Final Four, and honestly, probably when they make the Final Four, I plan on doing a deep dive on the journey to the Final Four for each 4 of these teams. So hopefully we can dive deeper into them then. One more thing about the Huskies, I was reading this AP article on them and they had a great tidbit. UConn is the first defending champion to make an Elite Eight since Florida won back-to-back titles in 2007. Game 3 of the Thursday slate, number 1 seed North Carolina versus 4 seed Alabama. Going into this one, we said it was going to be a track meet, and it absolutely was, especially in the first half. North Carolina led by 8, 54-46. Bama came out strong to start the second half, cutting the lead to 3 with 15 minutes to go. UNC star big man Armando Bacot would pick up 3 quick fouls to start the half, sending him to the bench. Offensively, this second half was pretty ugly for the Tar Heels. They only scored 33 points. Bama would go up 5 with a Grant Nelson 3-point jumper, 82-77 with 3:46 to go. But after 6 straight RJ Davis points, including 4 free throws, UNC would take the lead 85-82 with 1:32 left. Mark Sears' layup cuts it to a 1-point game, and then Jalen Withers takes one of the worst 3-point attempts, one of the most unaware shots I've seen in a given situation all tournament. Bama comes down, Grant Nelson and 1 layup, foul on Jalen Withers. Bama's up 87-85. With their season on the line, RJ Davis, in my opinion, takes 2 terrible shots, getting blocked by Grant Nelson on the first one and badly missing the second one. Grant Nelson would then make both free throws, and Bama would win 89-87. North Dakota State transfer Grant Nelson would have his best game of the season, 24 points, 12 boards, 5 blocks, 10 for 13 from the free throw line, 6 for 9 from the field. And Alabama's scoring output was concentrated to just 4 players. Mark Sears had 18, Aaron Estrada had 19, and sophomore guard Rylan Griffin had 19 as well, which was massive for them. Nelson would have 17 points in that second half, including 7 straight points when it mattered the most. According to ESPN Stats and Info, Grant Nelson is the first player to have 20 points, 10 boards, and 4+ blocks in a Sweet 16 game or later since Kevin Love in 2008. I'm super happy for Grant. There was huge hopes for him when he transferred from North Dakota State to Bama this offseason, and he's had a fine year, but it hasn't been anything crazy. So to have his best game of the year when it matters most, sending Alabama to their first Sweet 16 since 2004 and their second ever in school history. They have never made it to a Final Four. I have to say this, I apologize to every Alabama fan who's watched these videos. I have been a very outspoken non-believer in this Alabama team strictly due to their horrendous defense. They're ranked outside the top 100 on KenPom, and normally we just don't see teams with elite offenses and horrible defenses go far in March, but I gotta give this Alabama team props. They'll face 6th seed Clemson in the Elite Eight, and again, I know you guys are going to be pissed at me for doubting Alabama, but I'm picking Clemson in this one. Clemson has fared very well versus fast-paced teams this season, and they're going to execute in the half-court offense in a way that North Carolina wouldn't. Plus, I think Arizona was a tougher matchup for Clemson than this Alabama team. However, again, if I am proven wrong, I will give Alabama their flowers once more. They deserve tons of credit for making it to this point. RJ Davis did have an absolutely horrendous game in this one, going 4 for 20 from the field, including 0 for 9 from 3. These two teams have played earlier in the season. It was in late November. Clemson would win 85-77. Obviously, both teams have changed so much since then, but I'm taking the Clemson Tigers in this one. Alabama will not be able to sag off of wings like they were versus North Carolina, allowing the paint to open up more to drives. Either way, it should be a fun game that tips off later today at 5 p.m. All right, boys, we got to move quicker or I'm going to be editing this video all morning. Game 4, Illinois, Iowa State. I thought this was going to be the game of the day, and while it was still a fun one, I just felt like Illinois was in control of this game from start to finish. I said this in the preview video, but if Iowa State goes 5 minutes without scoring, this game is probably over. And what do the Cyclones do to start the game? They wait until the 6:26 mark to score their first points. Illinois gets out to an 11-2 lead, leading at halftime 36-26. Iowa State's leading scorer, Keyshawn Gilbert, would have 9 quick points to start the second half after being held scoreless in the first, cutting the Illini lead down to 4. Illinois would lengthen their lead once more, but the Cyclones would again cut the deficit to 2, 53-51, with 7 minutes to go. Iowa State had 2 different opportunities to take the lead. They would fail, and from then on, Illinois would continue to hold anywhere from a 3 to 6 point lead, defeating the Cyclones 72-69. Terrence Shannon Jr. was marvelous, scoring 29 points on 10 for 19 from the field. Coleman Hawkins had a great game, 12 points, and I felt like he was everywhere on the floor making plays. I have to shout out Curtis Jones for Iowa State, a guard off the bench. He gave it everything he could, scoring 26 points on 7 for 18 from the field and 8 for 8 from the free throw line. Honestly, almost everyone else on Iowa State disappointed me. Meanwhile, Illinois will try to do the impossible, defeat Connecticut in an Elite 8 matchup tomorrow night. I didn't feel like doing the stats myself, so I'll credit Rob Dowser from Field of 68 with this tweet. Here's Terrence Shannon's averages in his 6 postseason games, including the Big Ten tournament. He also joins Blake Griffin as the second player in the last 30 years to score 25 plus points on 50% from the field in each of his first 3 tourney games, while still bringing his team to the Elite 8. We shall see if him and Illinois can do the impossible versus UConn later tonight. I mean, it's pretty easy. I have to pick UConn in this one, but I won't be mad if Illinois pulls it off. Game 1 of the Friday slate, Marquette, a 2 seed versus NC State, an 11. I'll be honest, guys, I don't have much to say here because Marquette shot it so badly from 3. As a team, they went 4 for 31 from 3. That's 13%. Sam Federer went and tracked all 27 of Marquette's missed 3-pointers in this game. If you want to watch that thread, I linked it below on X. And Marquette missed a bunch of wide open threes, guys. But at the end of the day, that takes nothing away from NC State because this is March Madness. And while I believe shooting luck is 100% real, especially from 3, you have to make shots if you want to win the game. NC State made shots, Marquette didn't. It's just that simple at the end of the day. NC State wins 67-58 in a game that really didn't ever feel like they weren't in control of it. Marquette would get it to as close as 6 with 3:39 to go, 58-52, but that was it. Tyler Kolek finishes a fantastic career. In my opinion, he's going to be a fantastic backup point guard in the NBA. He finishes with 17 points, 10 boards, only 3 assists, but let's be honest, he probably should have had 7 or 8. Kim Jones finishes with 20, 3 for 12 from 3. David Joplin, 0 for 7 from 3. Just absolutely brutal, man, but I'm happy for NC State, the Wolfpack. DJ Horn had 19 points, 5 boards on 6 for 15 from the field. DJ DJ Burns only scored 4 points, but he also only took 4 shots, and they didn't really need him to score. He had 7 assists. His ability to pass from the post is next level. Orcel was fantastic with 15. Diarra had 11 and 15 boards. I love this North Carolina State team. They started this year 17-14 and have been 7-0 since in the ACC tournament and the NCAA tournament. On Sunday, they'll have the opportunity to become just the 6th 11 seed of all time and the first since 2021 UCLA to make a Final Four, and the first one to ever advance to a national championship game. We'll discuss their opponent and my prediction later in the video. Game 2, number 1 seed Purdue versus 5 seed Gonzaga. The Zags made Purdue work in this one. It was a back and forth first half with Purdue leading 40-36 at the end. Gonzaga would cut it to 2, 53-51 on a Nolan Hickman 3 with 12:34 left, but the Boilermakers would go on a 16-2 run, leading 69-53 with 7:36 left. Gonzaga never really recovered from there, but I was super impressed with Graham Ike in this game. We all knew Zach Edey was going to be a very tough matchup, and while Ike would foul out and so would Watson, in that first half, it looked like Gonzaga had a blueprint for beating Purdue. Ike would hit 2 threes, 18 points, 10 boards. Unfortunately, it's just too tough for Gonzaga when Purdue's shooting 57% from the field and 45% from 3. Edey finishes with 27 and 14, 7 of 10 from the free throw line. Braden Smith, 14 points, 15 assists, 8 boards, 2 boards away from being the 11th ever player to have a triple-double in the tournament. Purdue's in the Elite 8 for the 6th time ever in school history, the first since 2019 Carson Edwards' legendary run, with an opportunity to make the Final Four for the first time since 1980. I know there's this huge discourse with Zach Edey and foul calls. I just don't feel like getting into it in this video. All I'll say is this game in particular, I would be pretty upset as a Gonzaga fan. Game 6 of the Sweet 16, third on Friday. Houston versus Duke, 1 seed versus 4 seed. My prediction was for Duke to win, and while they did win, I'm going to tell you why I'm not happy about it. Houston was winning 16-10 when Jamal Shed turned his ankle. I feel awful for Shed. He is one of the best players in this tournament, the leader of this Houston team. And while he tried to give it a go, he just couldn't. Duke ends up winning this one in a tight one, 54-51. Outside of Cryer and Roberts, Houston just could not score. This really felt like Emmanuel Sharp's opportunity, especially after having 30 versus A&M, to pick up in Shed's absence and will his team to a win. Unfortunately for Houston, they just came up a tad bit short. Sharp did miss a potentially game-tying 3. And the reason I say I'm not that excited about this win for Duke is I don't feel like they deserve to win. Obviously, there's nothing they can do about Shed getting hurt, but they just didn't really play that good of a game, and I was expecting a lot more from them. If Jamal Shed is on that court, I believe Houston wins by 12 to 14 points. But at the end of the day, this is March Madness. Duke has a chance to prove themselves in the Elite 8 on Sunday to me in their matchup versus North Carolina State. I'll tell you right now, I'm taking the Wolfpack in this one. Duke just doesn't have that toughness that Houston does. And even though I love Jeremy Roach's play as an experienced guard, I think NC State's a tougher team. I think NC State is going to dictate the game. Filipowski will not be able to handle DJ Burns on the defensive end. And bottom line, this seems to be a year of destiny for NC State. Meanwhile, Duke has beaten Vermont, a 13 seed, James Madison, a 12 seed, and now Houston without their best player. And now they face an 11 seed for a chance to go to the Final Four. That is probably the easiest run to a Final Four in NCAA tournament history. I don't know, maybe I'm being too hard on Duke, but that was an ugly game, and I don't think they deserve to win it at all. We'll see if they prove me wrong in the Elite 8. Lastly, has any dominant team in recent years had as bad of injury luck in the NCAA tournament as the Houston Cougars? 2022, you have Marcus Sasser and Trayvon Mark missing the NCAA tournament. Last year, Shed and Sasser are injured throughout the tournament. And then Roberts was injured in the Big 12 tournament and is clearly playing through it, and they lose Shed in the first half of the Sweet 16. Game 8 of the Sweet 16 was probably my favorite of the Friday slate. 2-seed Tennessee versus 3-seed Creighton. This game was always going to come down to one question. Would Creighton's offense prevail, or would Tennessee's defense prevail? Creighton took a 1-point lead going into the first half, 35-34. Tennessee would then go on a 15-0 run, led almost entirely by Dalton Knecht, going from being down 39-37 with 19 minutes to go to being up 55-39 with 14 minutes to go. Dalton Knecht scored or assisted on 13 of those 15 points. Creighton would make a strong push, cutting the lead to 3 points, 62-59. Creighton would then go scoreless for 3 minutes from the 4-minute mark to about the minute mark, and that was about all she wrote. Tennessee would win 82-75. And oddly enough, while I give a ton of credit to Tennessee's defense, it was their offense that won this for them, scoring 48 points in the second half. Dalton Knecht would finish with 24, 6, and 5. He did struggle from the field, however, going 8 for 21. I thought Jonas 80 was going to be an X factor in this game, but he was bad. He only played 17 minutes. Tennessee needs him to figure it out in the Elite Eight. Zakai Ziegler had 18, 6, and 4, and Josiah Jordan James had a massive 17 points on only 6 shots and going 6 for 6 from the free throw line. Trey Alexander had a rough game when it mattered most. He did have 13 points, but he went 3 for 12 from the field. Baylor Shireman did what he could to keep his team in this one. 25 points, 6 boards on 8 for 19 from the field. But Tennessee denies Creighton back-to-back Elite Eight appearances and gives them their first Elite Eight appearance since 2010 with Bruce Pearl at the helm. Tennessee has never made a Final Four. They'll face off against Purdue tomorrow in a game between two teams that have either never made it there in Tennessee or haven't been there in a long time in Purdue. I love Tennessee, I love Dalton Knecht, but I do not see them being able to defeat Purdue. 80 was bad against Kalkbrenner tonight. I cannot imagine what he will be against Edey. Dalton Knecht's going to do everything he can, and while I think Zakai Ziegler could do pretty well in his matchup versus Braden Smith, Braden is such a savvy player that I don't know if he'll be able to slow him down. So to recap my predictions, if you're still watching this video, I have Clemson defeating Alabama to make it to their first Final Four in school history. UConn over Illinois, but here's my prediction. Illinois is going to lose by less than 10 points, breaking UConn's streak. Duke versus NC State. I got North Carolina State making the Final Four, and Purdue versus Tennessee, with Purdue advancing to the Final Four. So my Final Four is Connecticut, Clemson, NC State, and Purdue. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. This past week has been super memorable for me. If you're still watching, I'm so grateful for you. Every view, every subscription, every notification bell. You guys are truly the best, and it motivates me to continue making better and better videos. If you enjoyed this one, you can check out my how far each seed has advanced in NCAA tournament history video. Or if you haven't seen my daily recaps from earlier in the tournament, you can start right here. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see ya on the hardwood.